morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Rachna Patel, and I am pleased to be your MC for this Asian Women Leadership Summit, AWLS, Bangalore. This event follows 7 successful summits in the APAC region. These events provide a platform for senior decision makers to interact, network, and exchange ideas and best practices with fellow professionals. Gender parity is now a key part of boardroom discussions. Research shows that companies with greater participation from women at the senior decision-making level perform better. They also produce better shareholder returns over an extended period. It's more than a moral issue, it's an economic imperative. While much has been done to further this issue, more must still be done to accelerate the change underway. On behalf of the organizers, Quest Conferences, I would like to thank our sponsors, Capgemini, Dell, JLL, WeWork, and Video Hire. We'd also like to thank our media partner, CNBC, gift partner, Nestle, diversity partner, Jobs for Her, networking partner, NHRD, industry partners, AmCham and NASSCOM. Everyone, please join me in thanking them for their support. I'd now like to invite Mr. Arvind Singh to the stage to kickstart the event. Arvind is the founder and chief executive officer of Singapore-based Quest on the Frontier Group, the parent company of Quest Conferences, the company behind AWLS. Founded in 2002 in Singapore, Quest on the Frontier is an established regional consulting, corporate training, and business events firm, serving clients in Asia, the Middle East, and Africa. Prior to founding Quest, Arvind was an international corporate banker with Citibank and Standard Chartered Bank in Singapore. A physics graduate from Delhi University, Arvind earned his MBA from the Indian Institute of Management, Ahmedabad, and is also an alumnus of the Wharton Business School, University of Pennsylvania, John F. Kennedy School of Government, Harvard University. May I now invite Mr. Arvind Singh to please come on stage.
Thank you, Rachna. Good morning, everybody. I must say that on this forum, this is the 8th edition, and I must start by admitting that this is the one with the least number of men. So I'm a little bit disappointed because women leadership is an issue and is a challenge and opportunity for all of us. And for it to work, it has to have full support of everyone. So especially for the brave few people, men who are here, may I request a round of applause for them. I get asked, why did we start AWLS? And it started, we still do, and we run a headhunting practice. And some of my colleagues used to say that male candidates are willing to engage without even reading the job description. They just say the job, what is the title? How much is the money? It's a bigger job, I'm in. And female candidates needed much more persuasion. I'm not sure whether I can do it, etc., etc. So, and I remember talking to a gentleman, regional president of a large US multinational, and I said, is it only because we are an agency that they act like this? And he said, actually, no. Even internally, we challenge ourselves because their thought process perhaps is different, but in a mostly aggressive organization part, if you don't put your hand up in the first 15 seconds, people think you're not interested. And this gentleman, so I think that's how we said that, look, there's no platform in Asia to create best practices on what different organizations are doing. For example, he said that, look, I used to ask Paula, my head of HR, that for this role, we are looking for people, and I always would get male candidates mostly. And I said, look, I thought that Linda in that country is good. Have you thought about her? Oh, no, sir, Linda would not be interested. And why so? Oh, she has a young family, and her mother-in-law is old. And he said, look, I used to listen to all that story, and I said, look, did you ask Linda? And the answer was no. So he basically then said that, look, for every senior role that comes to me, I insisted that you must have at least, out of the age of 5, 2 women candidates, whether internal or external. And his point was, I'm not going to give a job to a female leader just because of the gender, but I do want to make sure that the organization is opening up and welcoming and considering them before we decide. So this is the part of the nudging that an organization needs to do to break some of those barriers. And many of those barriers are, many of those barriers are not conscious. I mean, Paula did not mean to put down Linda when she said that she's not interested, but they just become biases, which become part of the thought process, the unconscious biases. And the best story I've learned about this unconscious bias, and some of you may have heard it before, is how the music industry overcome unbiases in the orchestra casting solutions. I'll keep it brief, but a lot of the music maestros in 60s and 70s found that 90% plus people were men, while there was an equal number of female who were also practicing music, and they were very good at it. And they said, why should this be the case? Why don't the women get selected in a more number? So then said, maybe a wise man suggested maybe we get biased. Somebody said that maybe we should put curtains and just listen to the music, not look at the person. So they started putting the curtains, and the ratio went up from whatever, women's ratio being 10, 12% to 20-odd% over the next 10 years. Still not good enough. So they kept saying, what was happening? And then another wise man said, maybe we get a clue when the musician behind the curtain is walking. Depending on the sound from the shoe, you can feel whether there's a bias or not. And then they said, maybe we should put carpets. And after that, the ratio went up to almost 40-45% women and remaining men. So the message here is that we are fortunate to be living in a world where there are no conscious biases. We must also remember there are parts of our world, and significant part, where there are even conscious biases. But at least in our part of the world, there's no unconscious biases. But each organization has to put up what I call curtains and carpets within your system to overcome those unconscious biases and identify. The next thing I wanted to mention was there is a lot of research, and established universities have done research. Financial Times have done research, and the research shows that organizations with more female leaders at the top have a consistently high performance on financial metrics. I'm sure all of you would have heard or read the statistics. Sometimes you wonder what is the real, is it a causal relationship or is it a contextual relationship? Because if it was that easy to improve financial performance, I see sometimes a data that shows, for every 1% increase in your board, your financial performance goes by 7%. So what do you need to double your profit? Get 13 women on the board, if the ratio was correct. So I think there's something more to it, I would argue. And I think the organizations that have women leaders at the top, the organizations that have women leaders at the board, the organizations that encourage women participation in the leadership teams, also do many other things right. So it could be the culture of a progressive organization, it could be the culture of meritocracy, it could be the gender-blind culture they create, but they also are a kind of organization that are leading on many other fronts. So while one could argue that to some extent women leader participation also correlates with many other progressive things that companies will do. Now we all talk about corporate, leading organizations. We sometimes, thank you. So we sometimes think that in the Indian system it is maybe difficult, and we don't all have a very high opinion of our public sector or government institution. But guess what? We are here in Bangalore, and there is an organization which is forefront of being a total gender agnostic organization. It is a public sector organization. It is an organization that does all of us proud. And if I can see my friend Pranjal, are you ready? Yeah. So I think I want to personally, and on behalf of all of you, I guess you'll agree with me, dedicate this particular event to the organization in Bangalore, right here in Bangalore,
India gets ready
which
to
is
take
ISRO.
destiny and mark its name in the annals of space history. India's second lunar mission will be always remembered as the country's first space mission to be entirely headed by women. Meet India's rocket women, who today will be the superstars in the background as India celebrates marking its moon footprint. Muthia Vanitha, Project Director. History will remember her as the first woman project director in ISRO for Chandrayaan-2, India's marquee moon mission. A side note here, Muthia Vanitha was first reluctant to take up the project, but later surprised all with her dedication. Assisting her closely is Ritu Karidhal, Mission Director, affectionately called the Rocket Woman of India at ISRO. In 1997, she started her career as an aerospace engineer at the organization. Her last big-ticket project was the ambitious Mangalyaan, launched in November 2013. Both Karidhal and Vanitha are in their 40s and have been part of ISRO for the last 20 years. Vanitha, an ace data cruncher, Ritu, having played a pivotal role in other ISRO projects like Mangalyaan. Two women heading Chandrayaan-2, while 30% women are part of Team Chandrayaan, powering India's 978 crore second moon mission.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you, Arvind. May I request all of you to please put your phones in silent mode for the duration of the conference? Thank you. Thanks. Vinita Bali is a global business leader with extensive experience in leading large companies both in India and overseas. She has worked with eminent multinationals like the Coca-Cola Company and Cadbury Schweppes PLC in a variety of marketing, general management, and chief executive roles in the UK, Nigeria, South Africa, Latin America, and the USA, in addition to Britannia Industries Limited in India. She brings a global and pragmatic perspective to strategy, marketing, innovation, and operations, having worked across countries and continents, with responsibility for global and regional roles. She has been recognized in forums, nationally and internationally, and won several awards for her various contributions to business and society. In India, Vinita serves as a non-executive director on the boards of CRISIL Limited and Syngene International Limited, is a member of the Board of Governors of the Indian Institute of Management, Bangalore, an advisory board member of PwC, and chairs the CII National Committee on Nutrition. She was also on the board of Titan Company Limited from October 2006 till March 2018. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming our keynote speaker, Ms. Vinita Bala.
Thank you very much, and thanks to Arvind and this entire team that has put this conference together. I think we couldn't have said it better when Arvind said that what we really need is more men in the room. And I say this because the point I really want to make today is that leadership has really nothing to do with gender. And I say this with conviction. I say this based on my own experience. And my own experience extends to living and working in 6 countries on 5 continents. And in addition to that, doing a large number of global roles. Somehow, we have separated competency and gender when we talk about leadership. So what I'm about to share with you over the next 10 minutes, and then I don't know if Parul is in the room, what we had said was that we would have about 10 minutes for questions from the audience, because I think the more interactive we make it, the better it is. So what I'm sharing with you is based on my own experience and my thinking about what really is effectiveness in a corporation, what is effectiveness in an NGO, in an academic institution. It doesn't really matter. And my conclusion really is that it is about your competency, it is about your experience, it is about your attitude, it is about the attributes that you bring to the job. Therefore, it is about behavior. And when we think about the word leadership, it's actually behavior. Leadership is a verb. It's not a position. It's not an entitlement. It's not something that, that is granted to you in an organization. Leadership is really about behavior. And those behaviors that take organizations forward, those behaviors that work collaboratively, those behaviors that take other people along with you to the path of success are the leadership behaviors that we most need. And my submission to you is that they have nothing to do with gender. Think about it differently. When you walk in through the door in your place of work, whatever that place is, it could be a university, it could be an NGO, it could be a bank, it could be a manufacturing organization, whatever. Your gender has very little to do with it. What has everything to do with it are your qualifications, your past experience, your track record, your attitude, your knowledge, your skills, your willingness and ability to learn. Now, tell me, which of these attributes is gender specific? In fact, each of these attributes are gender agnostic. They have nothing to do with the fact that you're a woman and somebody else is a man. And I think it becomes incumbent on people like us, all of you in this room, who are already in positions of influence, to actually, in our own way, change this dialogue. Because the more we focus on women leaders, the more we focus on women have to be trained for board positions because the government has stipulated that every listed company has to have an independent director who's a woman. We are perpetuating a myth, and I really call it a myth because there is no data to prove that. We are perpetuating a myth that women need more training, women need more encouragement, women need more this, that, and the other. In fact, the fact that all of you are in this room, to me says that women are ready. It is the organizations, and I say this with some regard for for the men in organizations who are in very senior roles. They have to make the call to make this change. I was particularly fortunate in my own career to have worked in organizations and what I call, Renaissance men, starting with my dad, who never differentiated between, I have two brothers and myself. I wanted to go and work in Nigeria. I went and worked in Nigeria as a single woman at a time when a lot of men would not have gone and worked in Nigeria. This was in 1992. I worked in the UK. I worked with the Coca-Cola company as division president in South Latin America. And, it doesn't get more macho than that. I used to walk into, I never saw, a woman at work. It's a bit of an exaggeration, but, you walk into a room in a conference room full of 40 men. But did I think about them as men and me as a woman? Frankly, I did not. I walked in there to do a job. I walked in there with a certain responsibility. I walked in there for ownership of outcomes. I walked in there to do the best that I possibly could, and it worked. And therefore, it becomes absolutely critical for those of us who have reached positions where you can influence decisions in your organization, where you can influence your male counterparts to think differently, where you can compel the organization to think innovatively about what happens if and when women have to take a short break. And this keeps coming up, women go and have children. The fact really is that if the men don't want the children as well, then, it would be a moot question. But think about it differently. In a 35 to 40-year career in an organization, even if you take 6 months away, it is no big deal. We make it a big deal because I guess it's easier to. We make it a big deal because it just keeps the conversation going. But I think the conversation has to change, and the conversation will only change if behavior changes. If we get more and more women who are going to, dig their heels in the organizations in which they are and say something that Arvind said, for every new position that you're hiring, I insisted that in all the jobs that I did, and we were very successful, that you want to see resumes of women in addition to men. Now, the thing to remember is that in those decision-making areas, you don't sacrifice competency. You don't sacrifice, there are no compromises to be made. The good news is there are plenty of women out there. They are engineers, they are chartered accountants, they are doctors, they are academicians. There are plenty of qualified women out there for no organization to really make a compromise on competency. So I'm emphasizing competency more than anything else, and I'm also emphasizing the fact that competency has nothing to do with your gender. We have made it out to be, but actually that is a myth that has perpetuated for far too long, and those of us who can change it must and should change it. The thing really is that if you look at, take management institutes, we now have a gender ratio. It varies by institute, but if you put all the management institutes together, you're still talking about 40% women and 60% men. When you look at early stage recruitment in most organizations who track that, the ratio is relatively similar. The moment you get to middle management and senior management, it just gets very, very dismal. So the question is that it is not that there aren't enough qualified women available. The real question is, what is the kind of environment and culture we have in our organizations that causes a lot of women to leave and not to return? If you look at performance ratios, etc., in every other yardstick of performance, including academic excellence, women actually do very much better than men. There is a big shift and change that is taking place. The other thing that we corporate types tend to do is to think that the entire world is a corporation. It isn't. Right now, I'm doing a lot of work in nutrition, which takes me to the villages of India, and I love that. If you see what the women are doing in the villages, women who have very little wherewithal, women who have very few opportunities, how they are making the most of the frugality that they have to create a change is something which is quite significant and something that we will see the impact of in a few years from now. Most women in rural are very clear. They don't want their daughters to lead the life that they have led. And against all odds, these girls are being sent to school and so on and so forth. So I do believe that all of us have a responsibility to create the ecosystem that we want to create, an ecosystem that is fair, an ecosystem that is equitable, an ecosystem that recognizes the talent and competency of everybody, irrespective of your gender or any other preference. In order to create that ecosystem, men and women have to work together. It is not that the women take off or the men take off. We have to work together. And for those conversations to really be meaning conversations, we need more and more participation of both genders in conversations like this, in discussions like this, which hopefully will lead to a different kind of action and which hopefully will lead to a world where we are no longer talking about women and men separately. This is quite an isolation. We have to bring this together because at the end of the day, what are we talking about? We are talking about talent. We are talking about collaborative work. We are talking about teams and partnerships that are going to make a big difference, that are going to make this world, our communities, our organizations, and this universe, frankly, a better place to live in. And, right now, and of course I don't want to go there, there are many things in this world we need to correct. You can start off with talking about, climate change and other issues. But again, all of those, to me at least, are symptomatic of how people think about issues. Do I think it is my issue or is it somebody else's issue? If I think it is my issue, then leadership demands I do something about it. Because, as I said earlier, if it is a verb, it is about ownership, it is about accountability, it is about changing things in the right way, it is about dialogue, it is not about decisions made in isolation. It is only through dialogue that you get inclusion. It is only through dialogue that you get understanding. It is only through dialogue that you can actually make things different and make them better than they are. So with these few words, I am going to end my formal talk and throw it open for questions. I believe we have 10 minutes for questions. Parul, wherever you are, keep me honest. That's what we had discussed. Thank you.
Good morning, ma'am. I'm Namrata, I'm from Dell, and I want to compliment you that I had a very inspiring time. The last 10 minutes were very inspiring to me.
Can you hold
So-
the mic a little up? Can't hear every word you're saying.
Okay.
Yeah.
Am I audible now? Thank you. So I wanted to say that the last 10 minutes were very inspiring to me, and the question I have is, so you were talking about making talent gender agnostic, and a lot of, making talent gender agnostic, the challenge is gender agnostic. And I think we would all agree today that we women at this age are in much benign times as compared to the times that you went through in your professional career. So I want to know, what was the biggest challenge you faced because you were a woman in your journey, and how did you overcome it?
I keep getting asked this question a lot. I never thought about it as a challenge. I mean, I just went about from the day I was a management trainee till now. I just go and do what I need to do. I don't think about what anybody is thinking or saying. And I don't worry about anything which is extraneous to me. So challenge, it's the usual thing. I mean, I was the first woman to join Cadbury in India as a manager. And the biggest issue, this was in 1980. And the biggest issue the HR people had was which bathroom was I going to use? Because guess what? There were, loos for women. There were loos for men who were managers, and there were loos, bathrooms for men who were not managers. So suddenly I was this woman who was a manager, and, the HR guy said, we will lock up one of the bathrooms and so on. And I'm saying, cut it out. It doesn't make any difference to me. So, there are silly things like this, which people make a lot of. So yes, I was the first woman to join Cadbury in India. I was the first woman in Cadbury's to go on the board of Cadbury Nigeria, Cadbury South Africa. I was the first woman in Coke who was a division president, and I lived and worked in Chile. And most of the time, I had to deal with people who were not women. But I never thought about it, frankly. Even today, when I go to a meeting or I sit across the table, I am not thinking of your gender or your accent or your religion or your food preferences. I am interacting with you on the tasks that we need to interact with. And here I would say another thing. Women just tend to overthink these issues. Just stop thinking about it. Just go in there, do your best work, and everything else will work out.
Thank you, ma'am. You make it seem so easy. Thank you.
Gosh, these lights are really blinding.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah,
I'm Kanchan, I'm from Capgemini.
thank you for the lights.
You talked a lot about that how we should encourage our manager, our organization to look beyond gender. But how do we encourage women who come into work to think that they are capable? This is the challenge which we face. We know that they are capable and they have been educated, they have been brought up with the thought that they will be working. But somewhere in back of their mind, it has always been that, their personal life will hold them back, right? And this is one thing which we always face as a challenge, and that comes as an obstacle because managers will keep telling you that women are leaving because of their personal challenges, right? So your advice on that, how do we encourage those women to bring their career first?
What you're talking about is really more a question of self-esteem and confidence that women have. The first thing is the fact that Capgemini has selected you to come and work in Capgemini is an indication of your competency and your capability. But I think it would also be, I don't want to shortchange the gravity or the seriousness of the topic, because at the end of the day, organizations are nothing but part of an ecosystem that we all work in. But the organization is a very important ecosystem. Where do people get their self-confidence from? Self-confidence comes from success. Self-confidence comes from approval. Self-confidence comes from having done a variety of different things. And self-confidence comes from being supported. Now think of the men in the organization. They're not just people who come to work. They're also people who go back to families. They're also people who have daughters and wives and mothers and sisters and so on. And I do think if there is one group that needs to be sensitized, and I'm saying this in all seriousness and with a great deal of respect, I think if there is one group that needs to be sensitized on gender issues, it is the men. They really don't know what to do because they have been used to being pampered at home, coming to the office, being surrounded with their own buddies. It's an old boys network, or it used to be. And therefore, how do you interact in a different manner becomes critical. I think the responsibility of organizations and of people like yourself who are in these important roles is to get a different dialogue going in your organization. It is to get the men responsible because, whether we like it or not, a lot of the key decisions are still made by men. So how do you influence those decisions? How do you get them to see things differently? I think that's as much a part of leadership and the role that, all of you can play as anything else. So for things to change, the ecosystem, the larger ecosystem also has to change. And the organization is nothing but a microcosm of, the society in which we live. I keep saying, actually, if we had more dangal dads, it would be a very different world. Because women need, we need some Renaissance men. They could be your people you work with. It could be somebody from your family. And I think if the dialogue is really around what are people contributing, how are people, working in an environment, and what encouragement are we giving? And also, I would say to all the women, I stop thinking about being a perfectionist. Women take on all the responsibility to manage the house, to manage the children, to manage the work, to manage that. Why? I mean, if you just turned around and said, I'm going to take 50% of the responsibility, it's going to be tough. It's easier said than done. You have to co-opt other people in doing this. But that's the only way in which the ecosystem will change. Otherwise, we will continue to perpetuate all the stuff that we believe in, and we'll continue to talk about this, but very little will happen.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I guess we're out of time. Thank you.
I'm sure you'll have many more questions for Vinita. She will be available during the networking session. Maybe for tea, will you be available at the tea break? Well, so please take that opportunity to say hi to her then and ask her your questions and to continue a discussion that you might find important to you guys. So thank you, Vinita, for sharing your experiences with us and also for your interesting insights into leadership. I think, you said leadership has nothing to do with gender, and it's about behavior, which is actually quite an interesting, point of view. And it's so true that in a career that spans, 25 to 30 years, a 6 months absence is not a big deal. And the conversation does need to change. Thank you for sharing that with us, because competency, as you've mentioned, has nothing to do with gender. I'd like to invite Mr. Arvind Singh to hand over a token of our appreciation to Vinita. May I call you back on stage, please? Thank you. to invite our first panel moderator, Mr. Murali Shivaraman, for a panel discussion on In Conversation with Successful Women Leaders. This session is sponsored by JLL. Mr. Shivaraman has over 30 years of experience, of which the past 20 years has been in CEO roles, global and regional. Currently, he is Independent Director at Bharat Forge Limited, Chairman and Independent Director for Huhtamaki PPL Limited, formerly Paper Products Limited. Non-Executive Chairman and Director, Signify Innovations India Limited, formerly Philips Lighting India Limited. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Shivaraman.
You know what I'm going to do is, first of all, check out the energy level in the room. Good morning. Good morning. Not bad. Good morning. Good morning. Love that one. Beautiful. Now, thank you. Thank you, Marita. Okay, and Vivek and us are all batchmates, so we'll catch up later. Ladies and gentlemen, you're now going to witness 5 outstanding personalities coming on stage. They are so good and great in what they have done in life that I, with the permission of the organizers, will keep standing here. Okay? I'm going to introduce them one by one because when you ask them to introduce themselves, they'll be very humble about themselves. That's another great trait of leadership. So, may I start with Sheenam, please? Sheena Mori. Round of applause. Vice President, Enterprise, Vice President, Enterprise Dell Mobility, Chief Information Officer, CIO Leader, Asia Pacific, Chairperson, Women in Action, okay? And her vision, which is to make digital IT a service model, okay? Platforms, products, services are just a means. Just make the whole space a service model. When we drill her, and I want you to do that, you will see that in her life, she made some career choices. And there are some great examples that she will articulate. You're in a position of discomfort, but you're pushed to do that, and how it unlocks your capacity and your potential. And she also believes, keep in touch with your old bosses, okay? They might have been mean and nasty when you were working for them, but they are great mentors to have. Thank you, Sheila. Next, may I invite Vidya Lakshmi. Wow. Managing Director, Goldman Sachs. Let me repeat, Managing Director, Goldman Sachs. Head Human Capital. When you listen to her, and you should ask questions later, formative years in Kenya. Back to India, that's the first time she was exposed to the Indian college admission competitiveness. India just embeds competitiveness into you. And she said, look, what do I do? So she took economics. Then she said, why don't I do CA, chartered accountancy? She gives the entrance and she tops it. And she says, big deal, man. Why is all this fuss around CA? So that's Vidya. Goldman Sachs, 2004. Now look at the choices she makes. Joins in investment banking, moves on to the chief of staff role, and now spearheads the entire human resource for Goldman Sachs. Her mantra, take risk, keep learning, and believe in yourself. And later, in the next 60 minutes when we engage, there is one role model spouse here. And we should hear how her spouse has been a phenomenal support in her career. May I next invite Dr. Sandhya, please. Dr. Sandhya Chintala. Executive Director, ITES Skills Council, Vice President, NASSCOM. She is the most qualified in this room, I can say. Double doctorate, Dr. Sandhya, double doctorate, not one PhD, double PhD, physics, education. Now, she's just confidence personified. When I was having my little chats with them, she comes with an experience on global education management. And it's a tough task. She brings together the industry, the academia, and the government. Industry, academia, and the government. And imagine when she brings that together, the kind of stakeholder engagement that she's kind of tangoing with every day. And she's driven by steering education and making education to create employable skills. Make India the global destination for IT, business process management, ITES. She has clarity on what needs to be done, and she just says, I go and do it. Whoa. Next, may I invite on the stage Charu Thapar. Charu, Regional Director, Head Strategy and Platform, Property and Asset Management, JLL. Who does not know JLL? You can be anywhere, any part of the world. If there's anything around real estate, it's JLL. Charu will bring out in her dialogue today, and I think something that Vineet also touched upon, that there is no distinction between professional and personal. You're just a persona. You're a human being. You're born with certain values. Your family upbringing cultivates them. And that's the beautiful blend of professional and personal. And it got nothing to do with gender, or nothing to do with gender. She will narrate a story of how she got inspired from a family setback. You know, the power in you comes when you face adversity in life, and you always come out stronger. I loved it when she said that she pursued hotel management, and then she decided to take a career in real estate. And her family and friends said, real estate, for God's sake? And those days, real estate means all those grubby practices, whatever. God bless Charu, moved on to real estate, because she brought the spirit of hospitality in the hotel industry to the real estate space, and I have been a humble customer of yours. So round of applause to you. And then, last but not the least, Sunita. Can you please come over? Sunita Cherian, Senior Vice President, Corporate Human Resource, Global Head, Inclusion and Diversity, Wipro. So she's the big boss of Global Wipro, on anything on People Matters. Oh, the dialogue I had with her, she starts by telling, Murli, cut all this crap. We make our choices, and we live with it. If I have made a choice to be a homemaker, I am proud of that. And I have no grudge, no regrets, and I do that with my passion. When I decide in a stage in life to do that work-life balance, it's again my choice. So it's you and you alone that you own your choices. Interesting when she articulates her story, that she did her engineering, would have loved to be in the comfort zone of a coding job. A small window, she jumps onto a sales role, and that engineering DNA in front of the customer. And then she says, hey, why don't I lead human resource for Wipro? Because end of it, Wipro is a people capital-based entity. And if to my people, I can bring the brilliance of engineering and the customer empathy of my end user, nobody can stop Wipro from growth. Amazing. And what she also believed, and this is all gender agnostic, is two traits are honesty and authenticity. A round of applause. I bow. Do you want to say anything more on you, please? Because I wouldn't have done full justice.
Say, you flattered all of us on this stage. That's all I can say.
Please.
Listening to you was almost as good as talking ourselves.
I need the glasses. Oh, sure. He's making sure the mic is not too loud. Now, please, you are the customers here. And you've got 5 of them here. I'll try to shut up now. Just prompt them. But scribble the queries you have, and I promise you that you can go and attack them directly very soon. Okay? But to get the ball rolling, I had a few areas to discuss. Let me start with all 5 of you, phenomenal human beings, great business leaders. What came across as an innate belief in yourself. It all starts with that belief that you have. And making those calls and taking those choices. Sheenam, can we start with you? And please do share that red account and the other career moves as you articulate your story.
I think the innate belief comes from various things, right? I really like that phrase, Vinita, dangal dads. And I'm going to go back and tell my father that he's a dangal dad. I don't think I've ever done that. So I think it comes from the fact that my parents wanted me to do well. We had our fights. It's not as if we didn't have our fights. My mother wanted me to be a doctor. I didn't want anything to do with biology. And I had been somebody who was strong-willed and strong-minded from the very beginning. So when I was getting into my 12th competition, there used to be these constant arguments on the dinner table. You have to become a doctor. Like, girls become good doctors. And I said, I just don't like biology. So one day overnight, when everybody was sleeping, my room had shits all over the room. And I'm not joking, right? All walls, okay, all 4 walls were pasted with shits which said, I do not want to be a doctor. I want to be an engineer. So when my parents got up in the morning, my father told my mom, this is the last time we talk about this subject. Right? So I still remember that was the first choice, I think, in life that I made. Long story short, did my engineering from UVC in Bangalore. Not too many colleges, too many companies come to our college, used to come to our college at that point of time. Government college, small college tucked away in the center of the city, but yet we didn't have too many companies coming to us. Citicorp came, okay, to Bangalore, starting a new company. And my mother actually read that ad and she said, go and give it. My father was of this belief that my daughter doesn't need a job yet, like let her just concentrate on work. So we lied to my father. I said, I'm going for a group study. And I went for this, this mega interview process that was there. There was batches of people getting tested, going through the entire process. Again, long story short, got the job, started earning at a salary which was higher than what my father was earning at that point of time. So you can imagine the sense of pride that my parents went through, right? And so all of these things, why am I telling you? Because all of these things helped build the confidence and build the urge that you needed to do something with everything that you had. Joined iFlex, which was Citl at that point of time. 25 of us made that company, 40 people strong. So you can imagine the ride upwards. That was in 92, sorry. Got married in 94, had a baby in 97. And I think in 99, Alok had to move from Bangalore to Mumbai. I decided to stay back in Bangalore. I had a support system. We just got admission for Adi, my son, into a good school here. I didn't want to break that. One night, while sleeping, my son asked me, will you also leave me and go away? You know, it is those times when you think whether, you know, your career is important or your family is more important. And I think at that point of time, I took a decision that I will not travel. So for about 8 years since then, I did not leave Bangalore. And if I left it, it was a morning and evening trip to Mumbai because we had an office in Mumbai. One fine day in 2004, I still remember my manager came and asked me, he said, there is a Reddit account, and here is a person who's never talked to customers, who's been in development, in taking a back seat, literally, in everything that's happening in the organization. There's a red account. I want to take it, go and make it green. And I just looked at him and said, you want me to quit? I have never talked to a customer. I've never done an implementation. Here you want me to lead an implementation. I don't understand what happens in an implementation. And then you give me a red account that's at a legal lawsuit level, and you're telling me bring it back. So I went through my first major change curve, right? And nobody, and like Vinita told you, nobody at that point of time thought about diversity, right? There was no, I mean, I was the only woman in a group of so many men, like 40 of us used to go for an offsite, I was the only woman. But nobody thought that, hey, she's a woman, right? So this was not a woman-man thing. This was just like, I don't know, what are they doing to me? Right? So I went through my change curve, I built a resume, I went for an interview. That guy who was interviewing me said, your resume and your profile don't match. So clearly I had no resume writing skills. Got the job. When I got the job, I said, okay, maybe I can do something, right? So let me stay back and let me do this assignment and see what I can make out of that. So once I made that assignment work, changed that red account to a green account, it took us about 18 months. That was a turning point in my career. And I can't thank my boss enough, right? And the ladies at Dell have heard this story. I actually, you know, through tantrums, we grew up with a company, right? We were 25 of us who made it 40. I threw tantrums. I said, if you want me to quit, if you want to fire me, just tell me, you know, why are you doing all this to me? Today, when I look back, because I did that assignment, I am where I am today. Because I got an innate confidence in myself and that belief that I can and I will. Since then, I have not looked back. Every 18, 20 months, a new role, a new assignment, a new challenge. And that journey kind of continues even today, right? I moved out of iFlex in 2007 because I realized that I was not doing much and joined a very small company with the ambition of, you know, making big again with a small company. Joined Business Objects. Business Objects unfortunately got acquired by SAP, so that dream fell apart. But, you know, moved from an Indian setup to a global setup. In iFlex, we would, like, you know, say, design review hai, let's go get together, right? And there was this entire tool called Microsoft Outlook that was used for setting up meeting requests that I just didn't know about. Right? So when somebody said, okay, send me a meeting request, and I said, I'm wondering to myself what that is. Right? So I went into Google and figured out how to set up a meeting request. So that's the kind of transition that was there. A very different transition, very difficult transition, but a very exciting transition, again, telling me that I can do it. Okay, so those were, I think, the two key milestones in a career perspective that made me believe that change is possible. Change makes you stronger, and it's important sometimes in life.
Beautiful, beautiful. And God bless whoever your immediate line supervisor was who pushed you to that red account.
Yes.
And today, thanks to that, we have Dell being shaped by none less than Sheenam. Wow. Taking that cue, let's move on to Vidya. Vidya's career moves in Goldman Sachs, I briefly mentioned. And that wallflower incident. Please, Vidya.
Thank you, Murli. I think, you know, you make me sound much more glorious than perhaps I am. So there is a skill that I need to, you know, I need to learn from you on just how to project myself and how to market myself. But very briefly on my journey, so as Murli said, I don't know about the innate belief, because I think for the largest part of my life, I don't think I had any belief in myself. I don't think people around me had any expectations from me. I just sort of went along the journey and things sort of happened. And so as he said, I grew up in Kenya, spent pretty much my entire formative years there until I had to come back to India for my college education. I wasn't I think for all intents and purposes, I think I was a science student. So came back and didn't get admission in any college because you have to get 200% to get a seat in any college. So the two options I had were to study economics or to study literature. And for the life of me, I couldn't, see myself studying literature. So I said, let's just take whatever comes. And I took up economics. My brother was studying chartered accountancy. And so I realized that the cheapest course in this country is chartered accountancy. You just have to pay, I don't know, at that point, 100 rupees to buy that registration form and, and just register. And I said, let's just give this a shot. Everyone makes it sound like a very big deal. So while I was in college, I registered for the foundation exam. And as Murli said, I did pass with a rank. And from there, I said, this doesn't sound like it's a crazy, difficult education. So I ended up clearing my chartered accountancy in my first attempt. That actually put a lot of pressure on my brother, who was a BCom from one of the best colleges in Chennai and did not clear, thankfully he's not here today, did not clear both his intermediate and final until 3 attempts. So sometimes it is overrated, but I did clear. And then I was in PwC, that's where I started my sort of foundation from a professional perspective. Loved the experience because it gave me, obviously a huge experience across multiple industries, but I didn't really enjoy audit as much, or I didn't think about it. My parents had no expectations. They didn't say you have to become this, that. They just said, good education, get a job, do whatever you want. So no one instilled any big ambition in me, and a little bit of that is the theme, that I've carried on. Goldman Sachs happened by a weird chance. My husband is from Bihar. I'm a little bit of the two-state story. And so we wanted to, obviously, when he met me in the CA post-graduation campus placement, we met. After 15 days, he proposed to me. And like everything else in life where I don't think, I don't worry, I don't care, I'm just like, let's just go for it. And so I said yes, but clearly my parents were completely against it. My dad every day would show me news of Bihar and, how things, would go haywire. And so I said, fine, it seems like he's genuine, let's just give this a shot. But I needed to move out of Chennai and he was in Patna, so we decided let's find common ground. And so I was looking for a job in Bangalore, and that's how Goldman Sachs happened. I knew nothing about investment banking, and that's again a big story of my career is every job I've taken, I have known nothing about those jobs. So I was an analyst in investment banking. I used to cover industrial companies, started here in Bangalore. I got an opportunity to move to New York, actually at the peak of banking. So in 2007, I lived through the 2008 crisis. Again, at that point, I said no. When they gave me the opportunity to move to New York, it was my husband who said, you're out of your mind. How many people say no to, a job in Wall Street? You need to, say yes and move. So I said yes, and I moved. Again, I didn't think much. My son was 1.5 years at that point, left him behind with my husband and moved. Had an incredible experience in New York in Goldman Sachs. And after a couple of years decided to come back, and from there again every job has been new. I moved on from there. As Murli said, I worked as the chief of staff to the CEO, knew nothing about that, the right hand, left hand, everything he needed, from the most benign requests to the most strategic things I ended up doing. So learned a lot in that role. Moved from there, again, got another opportunity. He told me, build out the business, one of our divisions in India, analytic footprint that we were growing, knew nothing about it. It was within the sales and trading function. I have never done anything in trading, never done anything in sales. I said, what's the worst that could happen? I'll fail or I'll lose my job. and I will just go back home. Anyway, my husband has a job, so things will be fine. So that mindset, and I say that because, there are many women who have a strong sense of ambition and know what they want to do. I was not one of them. I did not know what I wanted to do. I just went with the flow and took risks. And finally, from there, they gave me this opportunity to move into HR. Again, I don't have an HR background. And other than hiring people and grooming people, I haven't, in my prior roles, I haven't done anything more significant, than that. But in the last 5 years, in this role, again, has been an incredible learning opportunity. That's a big theme in my life. I've always wanted to be in roles that I learn, grow, and do different things. And so I think a few sort of themes to call out there. One, Sheryl Sandberg says that the one, really important decision in your life is, the partner that you choose. But I think another equally important decision is, which is the company you choose to grow in. And that has been life-changing for me, working in Goldman Sachs. Yes, I'm a chartered accountant by background, but once I moved into the organization, that is quite irrelevant. I don't think very few people know I'm a chartered accountant within Goldman, and the ability to try different things, do different things, try different roles, move geographies, like I have been able to do that, most of which have been thrown at me, and most often I've said no, and somebody else has had to convince me and say that, no, I think you're, this is something you should try out. The one big inflection, point in my career, which is where I think perhaps the self-belief began, and I'll keep it short. But this happened when I moved back from the US, and I was just beginning to take up the role of chief of staff with the CEO. And as I was getting into the role, one weekend he called me and he said, there's this lunch meeting and a bunch of senior people are coming, and would you like to join us for lunch? And I said, okay, my immediate thought was, what excuse can I come up with so that I don't have to go to this lunch and, do some small talk with all these people over a weekend. I was completely disinterested, but clearly new to the job, who's going to say no to the CEO? So I said yes. And then the next thing he said to me, and forever I think I'm going to save that email, he wrote on email, he said, don't be a wallflower. And at that point, I had no idea what wallflower was, so I went and actually Googled wallflower. And wallflower essentially means, a decorative piece or whatever. And so my first reaction was one of anger, and I was so upset that he would think that, I'm a decorative piece and I'm going to sit there and, add a glamour or whatever he was thinking. And then as the anger subsided, I realized that he was right. He wasn't wrong, because innately there was the pressure, God, what am I going to say? Who are all these senior people? I'm suddenly going to be put on the spot. What if I don't know the answer? So all this self-doubt was playing in my mind. But the reaction was obviously, how dare you call me that, or how dare you think I would be that? And so long story short, I went for the lunch, and it was an amazing lunch, and I was a little bit lucky because that senior person who came was somebody I had worked on a deal with, and so we ended having common ground. But that made me then realize that if I have to grow in my career, I will need to get out of this fear of this and this notion of self-doubt that I had. So I ended up doing this role that put me completely in the limelight. I was always in front of large audiences. I was always working with senior people. And over a period of time, I have gotten over that, that fear, but it also made me realize that speaking in front of large audiences, being able to articulate my point of view, turns out to be one of my strengths, which maybe growing up, I wasn't, the debating secretary in school or college, and so it was an untested skill. But I'm glad I took the risks and was able to take on these opportunities that then allowed me to have such a rich set of experiences.
Fantastic, fantastic. Vidya started by telling me she's an introvert. She doesn't look to be an introvert. Managing Director, Goldman Sachs. But one thing, what she's doing now? She's not practicing what she preaches. Her two boys, 13 years old and 8, she's putting pressure on them. Your mom is a chartered accountant, your dad is a chartered accountant, your mom is managing director at Goldman Sachs, so better study, study, study. Okay? Thank you. Moving on to Dr. Sandhya. Dr. Sandhya, I mean, for me, double PhD, education, global, and then coming into a pretty tough space like India, NASSCOM, and getting in to shape policy, okay? And bringing, as I said, the industry, the academy, and the government. Tell us what drives you, please. Yeah.
Thanks, Murali. Ladies and gentlemen, as my colleagues here have spoken to you, I'm a change agent. If I don't like something, I'll go do something about it. Vanita, to say something different, I believe we are a superior race. Sorry, negative to the gentleman. We multitask. We look after the young ones. We can give birth, others can't. And we can do so many things. I excel in what I do because I plan, but I've had a very, very hard time from the very beginning because I come from a very middle-class family. But today, if I would look at colleagues around me, I'm a grandmother of 4. I'm a mother of 2 daughters, both entrepreneurs and very well settled, doing extremely well, and a wife of 1 husband. So putting these 2 together, we had an ecosystem of parents who felt that a woman should be married as quickly as possible and got rid of. So rather, 12th class seemed to be a defining time and said, "Beti ko shadi karwa do." So we somehow persist. My mother fought for us, and then I was from one of 3 sisters. So having had that, we all worked extremely well and very academically, very high achievers. That was the only thing we could do for ourselves. That's what we armed ourselves with. Post that, somehow, beyond the degree, we couldn't manage. We got married, and I thought, running from here, I could have a better time if I went off to my in-laws' house. So I was actually jumping from the fat into the fire. There they felt, oh my God, ghar ka bahu shouldn't even go out to the store because there were men in the store. Tell me where they aren't. So that was the background. And I found, and I wanted to study more. They said, no, you cannot study more. The wife of an IAS officer, he will feel belittled, so you mustn't study so much. Be where you are, be happy. Your role is different. And I said, what do I do? So I found that these people actually believe in a God-man. So I went and convinced the God-man that I'm the right candidate to actually work. So I, as a graduate, was teaching graduates in the village where my husband was posted. So from there, I took on my academic, and I said, by 30, I must get my PhD. So walked that way. But by the time I finished that and the young ones grew up, the 2 daughters, it was hard to move along. But every time of the way, they said, no, I'm not going to give you your degrees, so you cannot go out and look for work. So I took my degrees in my own arm, and I walked the streets to get myself a job. Ladies and gentlemen, you believe you can do it? That's it. Keep that faith in yourself, and you can meander. Even now, I still feel there's so much more to be done. When I looked around and saw there are people who can't get this educational opportunity, I said something must be done. So after working abroad for many years, because when the kids came up, they said they wanted to go abroad. My people said, no, you cannot take girls out of the country. I said, all right, you sit home. I'll take the girls, walk the walk, and walk the talk, and went out. Got them an opportunity, trained, got myself a job. Actually, I had to fixed a job for myself in one of the countries where I was going. And when I was entering the airport with the 2 young girls, no one else beside me, I saw the person who promised me a job going back to India. I said, oh my God, what's happened? Then I went back, and then with whatever little money I had, actually went into the university because my degrees were excellent, got myself a job, went into a professorship. And then when I was watching, I saw a country change its pattern of education by actually having a marriage between industry and academia. I said, why can't India do this? So then I walked to the World Bank, came into India to do the change which Chandrababu Naidu tried in Telangana, and actually made a part of it. Then they said, let's go back. Then I said, no, let's continue the change here. And that was the time we started what was called an Institute of Service Management, which was an industry academia meet. Then NASSCOM said, what you're doing here is to actually what we want to do. Can you come on board? So that I started as one person, started a dream for the country to actually make and build a talent pipeline that could build India as the world hub for talent. Having done that journey does continue even today, but I take everybody along with me. So it's not a difficult process, it's all in the mind. So basically, as young women who are sitting here, keep yourself financially stable. There's no love that you could have a joint account, right? Keep yourself financially stable. That's where your strength comes, right? You can do all the loving and doving and watch the movies, but just be financially stable. Yours is yours and his is also yours. So if you keep this mantra in mind, you have a lot of stability to dream. Otherwise your dreams go down the drain. You have to listen to everybody. People in my home say, you say and listen to everything, very nice, but do precisely what you want. Just take that advice. Very nice. No confrontation required. But I believe that if you can't put your own house in order, you cannot do public good at private cost. So do set your house in order. Whatever you do, you be an example. Everybody, it's not going to be an easy way, but if you believe you can, let me tell you, it is possible. Even today when I look around me, I see a lot of people say, I've done so much for others. Great. But then, have you yourself been a satisfied person? That's very important. So have a look at it. Today I talk about and work on the area of genomics and gene splicing, talk about areas where we actually will be creating children without the diseases that we want. Take any one of the future technologies and we can build it. I'm a nuclear physicist as well as an education. My educational competence was in the area of how the mind can absorb information. It's very, very beautiful. None of you actually like and do the same thing the same way. Like you have a breakfast which is so different for proteins and carbohydrates. Likewise, students love to learn. There is no bad student or poor student. It is the ability for a teacher to be able to deliver to an individual. Today's ecosystem, we can actually deliver customization to scale. You will see a huge process wherein which all of you will be able to continuously learn, and you will be. And as time goes on, if you go to 60 and beyond, there is no retirement. That's a good news for you, or I do not know how you feel about it. Retirement is in the mind. You constantly want to do something and change things around you. It's a beautiful thing. You don't have to actually say, I cannot do it and not walk the talk. So ladies and gentlemen, I just do think, if you can envision what you want to do, your mind and heart believes it, I personally believe you can do it. Thank you.
Whoa! Aren't we glad that she's shaping this entire space on IT, ITES, and BPM, and there's someone who can bulldoze one's way to get the academia, the industry, and the government together. God bless you, Dr. Sandhya. God bless you. Charu, you have an amazing story of moving from hotel hospitality to real estate. But even your family background, the conservative background where you're brought up, the one who inspired you to join the real estate space, and also that one example where there was a setback in your family. Okay, please, Charu, floor is yours.
Thank you so much. So, unlike my esteemed panel, I come from the northern part of the country. I grew up in Chandigarh. Very interesting dichotomy. My family was very forward-looking and modern. My grandparents moved to Simla after the partition. And at that time, my grandmother worked. She was the headmistress of a school, very respectable profession. So my grandfather would always say that you are my Jhansi ki Rani. And I would always wonder, why am I Jhansi ki Rani and why is my brother just an ordinary boy, right? And at that time, I learned to question things that were happening at home. I mean, my environment gave me the confidence to question. So when I was 12 and you can start cooking, I was taught how to make tea and Maggi noodles and stuff. And my brother, who was 3 years older, did not know how to do that. And my question to my mom and my grandfather was, you say I'm Jhansi ki Rani, but you're teaching me how to make tea. What about him? He'll not have to have tea. And that is what taught me. And I think that was at that time I didn't know it was unconscious bias. But you must question status quo. I brought it up, and my family realized, of course, he's a boy, and he needs to have those skills. So they were taught to him. The environment around me was different. People did not work. If you did, girls became teachers, and I think a lot of my panelists have said this same thing, teachers, doctors, maybe engineers. So after class 12, I took non-medical, got into an engineering college, and I was like, oh my God, I don't see myself as an engineer. I'm a people's person, that's what inspires me. I had surreptitiously taken an exam for hotel management, and I got through. So then my sales job within the family started. I was in Delhi. I had to move. First time a girl was moving out of the family, big discussion happened. And again, I questioned them. I said, you've taught me to believe in my dreams. Now let me live my dream. Testing, I think you must test boundaries always. Only then you can find some sort of a way forward. So I moved to Delhi, did hotel management, came to Bombay, worked for the Taj Group. And that is where I met my mentor, a real estate professional, an Australian gentleman, who said, hey, listen, you have great client skills. Why don't you move to real estate? This is in 94, 95, when the economy was opening up. So I said, okay, wow, sounds exciting, because I thought hotel industry for me at that time was getting a little monotonous. So I went back to my parents and I said, hey, listen, this is a great opportunity. I want to do this. And that time, real estate was equal to brokers, and brokers were equal to chappal and white trousers and shirt buttons half open with gold chains dangling. They're like, broker? Hotel management ke baad you want to be a broker? I was like, there are more elements to this. It's not just broking. You meet my mentor, see what he has to say. So we convinced them. I got into real estate in 95. And it has been an inspiring journey. But, you have setbacks as you go along. As they say, your career is often at crossroads with your personal goals. I wanted to have children, and at that time, your career is taking off. My mom, unfortunately, had a very major setback, very active person. She would go out for walks in the morning. One day she just collapsed and she was wheelchair bound. That's the same time I was planning a family, and I was like, hey, how am I going to do this? I'll have to give up my job and all. She said, do not worry. I will move into Bombay so that you can live your dream. Do not give up. And for 2 years, my parents gave up their time in Chandigarh and moved to Bombay to help me settle in my new role. I must also mention my spouse, very forward-looking, and again I tested boundaries with him. So my actual name is Charu Thapar Chakravarti. And I said, great, we're getting married. I don't want to give up my name. I'll happily add on yours to mine. I will not force you to add on mine to yours, so I hope that's a good compromise. So he said, yes, fine. And then when we had our children, I said, they will also have my name. And he was like, okay, fine. So my children have a double-barrel name. Often questioned, you're Thapar Chakravarti, what does it mean? Where do you come from? Who's your father, who's your mother? So, these are the things that you should continue to challenge. In my work life, I was one of the few females in the real estate profession. My name says Charu Thapar. I would go for meetings. First 5 minutes would be tea, coffee, and as if it was someone, they were waiting for someone to come. And it would be, Thaparji kahan hai? I said, I am the Thaparji. There's no Thaparji coming, right? And it took people a while to get used to taking advice or partnering with, a female colleague. But I must say, full due credit, you open yourself to people, the industry opens out to you. I've never had any biases. I think I completely align with what Ms. Bali said and what a lot of my colleagues have said. It's competency that matters, and your belief in yourself that you can do it. I would really urge each one of you here, whenever you are at those crossroads, do reach out to people. Do question things that have been said. So as I had children and you progressed in life, parents start falling ill. This is how policies get framed. So I went back to my company and said, there are 2 times in a woman's life, or actually anyone's career, where you need to take that pause. One is when you have children. So what are the policies that you have? And I'm really fortunate and proud to say JLL as a company has gradual return to work. We mentor our women who go back to have children to come back, because frankly, that is the toughest period in a woman's life. You go through depression, you need someone to counsel you, and the best thing that can happen to you is coming back to work. And unless you share your experiences with girls going through the same thing, they are not going to know. And the second time is when you are caregiving, your parents, your in-laws. And then again, I went back to the company and said, hey, listen, we have great policy for gradual return to work, but we should also look at this. Why should we lose senior leaders because they have to play the role of caregivers? And then we framed the policy to say that any time in your career, you can take these 2-3 breaks and come back. You know, your jobs will be open for you. But all of this happened with dialogue. The dialogue is really, really essential. What is the worst thing that can happen? The answer will be no. Well, then so be it. But the answer could be yes, right? So if I have dreamed a dream, how can I make someone else responsible for fulfilling it? It is up to me to fulfill my own dream. It's up to me to see how and what kind of support I can get to fulfill the dream that I have. That's all. Thank you.
Beautiful. Absolutely good. And God bless JLL. I mean, real estate can all be those pushers on rate per square feet, rate per square meter, but the human touch in a real estate office, in a real estate workspace, needs leaders like you to shape it. And as I said, I have been a great customer of JLL, so fantastic. Wow. Last but not the least, Sunitha, Wipro Global Group. And a brief chat with you, and I did share that when I introduced you. Engineering in your DNA, a choice into sales, and then shaping that organization on human resource, and also bring out that point of honesty and authenticity. What makes you stand out? Please.
Thank you, Murli. Am I audible? Yeah. So I guess the stories are really heartwarming because one, you just get to realize that you're not alone in that journey that you've gone through. So a similar upbringing of just 2, I have a sister. And growing up, I think I had a fonder memory of the women who used to work. So my mom was a housewife, but the earliest memory I had is of a woman going to work in the morning and coming back in the evening. So I think from childhood itself, it was there that you must get out of home and you must work. Now, what that work would be, well, one will define it as one goes along, but the clarity of thought was there that the choice between sitting at home and going to office, I would choose the latter. The ever unending saga of engineering, medicine, I think it happened in my family too. And the choice was simple because if your sister becomes a doctor, then, it's no fun to have 2 doctors at home. So I guess the choice was fair enough going for engineering. So was there some deep passion about engineering? The answer is clearly no. I picked up, and when computer science was hot in those days and one would have got a seat, I guess I just went with the flow of saying, let me go into those mother subjects. So it's electrical and electronics that I want to do. So I did all of that, and when Wipro came into campus and gave us a choice to say that, yes, if it is into the IT world of coding, then, well, there are so many seats, and depending on the number of people who qualify, we will be taking a whole lot more. But we're also doing an experiment of trying to see whether we can get suitable candidates with an engineering degree into sales. Now, the reason I say choice is I think that's the first time when you really exerted your choice and you stuck by that choice. Because you knew that the failure was higher if you went into sales, because 1, Wipro was experimenting, and 2, they were very clear that it's 1, max 2 people who will get selected. I don't regret the choice because I sat in for the sales interviews, qualified, came into Wipro. And let me tell you, there's always this comparison that one wants to make with others. So when I came into sales and I was telling Murli, you know, the offices that we were in was nothing to do with those swanky AC offices that my friends had joined. But you have to be comfortable with the choice you made because, you know, even in that early stage, these things can influence you. You know, you sit in a not so happening office, you're on the road, you're trying to sell, and here's your friends who are enjoying all kinds of events at the, you know, they were a pampered lot, the IT lot, you know, so the company is trying to pamper them. But the fact is that it's a choice you made, and you learn to embrace that choice, and you learn to live that choice. Moving into HR was another such choice that I made. Of course, a lot of my managers thought that I was crazy to even ask for an HR kind of role. But I guess the intent was very clear that I've seen what life is outside in, and I want to bring that change inside out. So if Wipro is all about people and it's all about IT services, then probably this is the function that has that seat on the table, and this is the function that can really shape the future of what Wipro pitches in front of our customers. So moved into HR, and again, I think it was the best choice that one has made in terms of getting a holistic understanding in the organization of how one really shapes it, how one really enables it. And I would completely agree with what Vinita said. Leadership has nothing to do with gender. So today I'm in a position where I can influence that leadership, where I can influence that culture, where I can influence inclusion to be at the center of anything that the organization picks up. And the reason why probably people sit up and listen to the last point that Murli mentioned is you just state what you really believe in. And I think if you're authentic enough and there are no really hidden agendas behind it, people listen to you, right? So have a point of view, be deeply, have the conviction that your point of view is important and it should be heard. And I think you will be happy to see the fruits of it, because even within Wipro today, I can say that with confidence that it's no more diversity that is a cause of concern to us as much as inclusion. So it's not the numbers that one is after, it's about driving the culture, driving the behaviors, driving the right things, which in turn will obviously move the meter, which in turn will obviously ensure that you have the diverse group of people that you really want to invite. So that's my story, Murli, and thank you for inviting me over.
Beautiful. And you know, I asked her a question, at least I have been through that, okay, where people go to the HR head, say, but I deserve this promotion, okay, I've worked so hard, okay. Now, how do you handle the situation where you have to show the mirror but not lose that individual's, you know, the enthusiasm, the morale, everything. And that's where you said, look, that individual continues to be the hero or the heroine, you know, but show the mirror, be pragmatic, and just say, look, few more steps to go ahead, cross this. Fantastic. You know, when there are 5 phenomenal human beings, time runs out. That's my problem. So, but I should be given 1 hour, please, because you can't. Till 11:30? Done? Okay. Okay, all right. Okay, I had a few other questions, but I'm going to pause here. Come on, audience. Okay? You just heard this story. When you were listening, did something pop up in your mind? Mentors, network, spark, anything. Floor is yours. Yes, there's a question.